The question of time. Travel in Islam time has always been one of the greatest mysteries for human beings. From the earliest days of history, people have looked at the sun, the moon, and the stars and wondered what time really is. Is time something that flows like a river, carrying us forward without pause? Or is it a cycle that repeats itself again and again? Ancient philosophers from Greece to India debated these questions for centuries. But in the modern age, science has given new meaning to this debate. The idea of time travel, moving either forward or backward through the river of time, has fascinated scientists, writers, and ordinary people alike. Yet long before science fiction made the idea popular, there were stories in religious traditions that hinted at mysterious journeys beyond the normal limits of time and space. Among these traditions, one of the most famous is the story of the Miraj, the miraculous night journey of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. According to Islamic belief, the Prophet was taken on a journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then ascended to the heavens all in a single night. What makes this event so unique is not only its spiritual depth, but also the way it challenges our ordinary understanding of time. How could such a long and complex journey take place in what seemed like only a portion of one night? This is where the question arises: is the story of the Miraj connected in any way to the concept of time travel? And if so, what hidden science lies within it to explore? This question, we need to first understand what Islam says about time itself. In the Quran, there are several verses that show time is not always experienced the same way for every being. For example, in Surah Al-Hajj, it is said that a day with Allah is like 1,000 years of what we count. In another verse, a day is described as 50,000 years. These verses remind us that human measurement of time is very different from how time exists in the divine realm. What seems like a short period to Allah can feel like centuries to us, and what feels like a long period to us can be only a blink in the sight of Allah. This opens the door to thinking about how prophets and chosen people might have experienced journeys that bend the rules of normal time. Now, let us look closely at the event of the Miraj. The story begins with the Prophet resting near the Kaaba in Mecca when the angel Jibril appeared to him. He was taken to a special creature called Buraq, described as a white steed faster than lightning. Riding this miraculous creature, the Prophet traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem in a moment. For ordinary travelers of that time, such a journey would take weeks, but for the Prophet, it happened in what seemed like an instant. Already here, we see an example of what in modern language might be compared to faster than light travel. Something scientists today still debate as a possible requirement for moving through time. From Jerusalem, the journey did not stop. The Prophet then ascended through the heavens, meeting different prophets at each level, until he reached the highest point, the presence of Allah himself. This is where he was given the command of 5 daily prayers for his followers. When the Prophet returned to Mecca, the entire journey had taken less than one night. Yet during that short time, he had traveled unimaginable distances beyond the limits of the universe itself. Skeptics of the story might ask, how could such a thing be possible? The answer in Islamic belief is that nothing is impossible for Allah. However, from a scientific perspective, one can still try to understand how such a journey relates to ideas we know today. Modern physics, especially the theory of relativity, tells us that time is not fixed. When someone travels at great speeds, close to the speed of light, time slows down for them compared to those who remain still. This effect, called time dilation, has been proven by experiments with atomic clocks placed on fast-moving airplanes or satellites. If such changes in time can be measured with human technology, then the possibilities at divine command become limitless. This sense, the Miraj may be seen as a journey where normal rules of time and space were suspended. The Prophet experienced events in a way far beyond human limitations. It was not simply a dream because he described real experiences and met real prophets. It was not an illusion, because upon his return, he described in detail things about Jerusalem that he had never physically visited before, details that were later confirmed by travelers. The journey was real, but it was real on a level beyond human science. This brings us to the heart of the discussion. Could the mirage be considered a form of time travel? The word time travel usually brings to mind machines and science fiction stories where people step into a device and move into the past or future. But in Islam, the concept is not tied to machines, but to the power of Allah. If Allah wills a servant to experience centuries in a moment, or to journey across universes in the blink of an eye, it is possible without the need for technology. For believers, the mirage is a reminder that the universe is not limited to what we see and measure. It holds mysteries far beyond our imagination. At the same time, the mirage is not only about science or the bending of time. It carries deep spiritual lessons. The command of 5 daily prayers was given during this journey, showing that prayer itself connects humans to Allah beyond time and space. Every time a Muslim stands in prayer, they are in a sense lifted beyond the world into the presence of their Creator. Just as the Prophet traveled through the heavens in the mirage, the believer travels spiritually in prayer. This hidden connection might be considered a daily reminder of the great journey that took place. When we place the story of the mirage next to modern scientific ideas, we notice something interesting. Science today speaks of wormholes, black holes, and dimensions beyond the 3 we know. Physicists have suggested that wormholes could, in theory, connect distant parts of the universe in an instant. They also suggest that gravity bends time and space in ways we cannot fully understand. For a believer, it is easy to see how these theories echo the power of Allah, who created the laws of nature and can bend them at will. Yet the purpose of the mirage is not to prove physics, but to strengthen faith. The companions of the Prophet were tested when they heard of this event. Some people mocked and rejected the idea, saying it was impossible. But Abu Bakr, the closest companion of the Prophet, responded with simple faith. He said, "If Muhammad said it happened, then it must have happened." This is why he was given the title as Siddiq, the truthful one. His response shows that faith sometimes requires trust beyond human logic. Even so, the story of the mirage continues to inspire both believers and thinkers. For Muslims, it is a sign of the greatness of their prophet and a source of guidance for prayer. For scientists, it is a fascinating case that echoes ideas of relativity and time dilation. For philosophers, it raises questions about the nature of reality and how humans experience time. As we move deeper into this story, we must remember that the hidden science of mirage is not meant to replace faith with formulas, but to remind us that Allah's creation is full of mysteries. Human knowledge grows day by day, yet there will always be realms beyond our reach. The mirage stands as a reminder that reality is greater than what we see, and that the journey of the soul can transcend all barriers of time and space. Part 1 ends here, having laid the foundation for our journey. We have explored the mystery of time in Islam, the miraculous event of the mirage, and how it connects to the modern question of time travel. In the next part, we will dive deeper into the scientific aspects, the interpretations by scholars, and the lessons that continue to inspire humanity today: science, faith, and the mirage connection. In the first part of this story, we laid the foundation by exploring how the concept of time in Islam is different from the way humans understand it. We discussed how the miraculous journey of the mirage challenges our ordinary sense of time and space, and how this connects with modern ideas such as relativity and time dilation. Now in part 2, we will go deeper into the scientific perspective as well as the spiritual lessons that emerge when faith and science are seen together. The human mind has always been curious about the possibility of traveling through time. Ancient myths across cultures often describe heroes who journey to other realms and return after what seems like a moment, only to find that centuries have passed. In Islamic tradition, this idea is not presented as myth, but as part of divine reality. The Quran itself gives examples beyond the mirage where time appears to behave in extraordinary ways. One well-known example is the story of the people of the cave, also known as Ashab al-Kahf. According to the Quran, these young believers took refuge in a cave to protect their faith. They slept for hundreds of years while Allah preserved them. When they finally awoke, they felt as though only a part of a day had passed. Here again, we see a form of time suspension, where the experience of the sleepers was completely different from the reality outside. To them, only a short while had gone by, but in truth, many generations had passed in the world. Another example can be seen in the story of Uzayr, or some say another figure, mentioned in the Quran. This man passed by a ruined city and wondered how Allah could ever bring it back to life. Allah caused him to die for 100 years and then resurrected him. When asked how long he thought he had stayed, he replied, "A day or part of a day." But in truth, an entire century had gone by. Once again, human perception of time was completely different from actual time that passed in the world. These stories are not about machines or technology. They are about the limitless power of Allah, who controls time itself. They also provide a context for understanding the mirage. If time can be suspended for the people of the cave or stretched for Uzayr, then why should it be surprising that the Prophet could experience a journey through the heavens in a single night? Now let us consider the scientific side. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity revolutionized our understanding of time and space. According to relativity, time is not a separate thing that flows independently. Instead, time is connected to space, forming what scientists call space-time. Massive objects like stars and planets bend space-time, which is why gravity exists. The more massive the object, the more it bends space-time. This also means that time itself can be stretched or slowed down, depending on the conditions. Experiments have proven this effect. Scientists placed precise atomic clocks on high-speed jets and compared them with clocks that stayed on Earth. The clocks in motion ticked slightly slower, showing that time had passed differently for them. Astronauts in space experience the same effect, though it is very small at human speeds. If we could move close to the speed of light, time would slow down dramatically compared to those who stayed behind. This is why many physicists say time travel to the future is not only possible, but already happens on a small scale. When we place this knowledge next to the mirage, an interesting picture emerges. The Prophet traveled on Buraq, described as moving faster than lightning. If this speed were beyond anything known to humans, then time itself would have appeared different to him compared to those on Earth. What seemed like a single night in Mecca could have contained vast stretches of experience in the higher realms. From the viewpoint of relativity, this is not impossible. In fact, it matches the scientific principle that time is relative, not absolute. Some modern scholars suggest that the mirage may also connect to the idea of multiple dimensions. Physics today speaks of more than 3 dimensions of space. Theoretical models, such as string theory, suggest the universe could have 10 or even 11 dimensions, though most are hidden from human perception. If such dimensions exist, then a journey like the mirage could involve moving through higher dimensions, where the rules of time and space are completely different. To travel from Mecca to Jerusalem in a blink would not require crossing every mile in between if one could simply pass through a higher dimension that connects the 2 points. This is similar to the idea of wormholes in physics, which connect distant places through tunnels in space-time. But again, Islam does not claim the Prophet used technology or theories. The mirage was purely by the will of Allah. These scientific ideas are simply ways for us to see how modern knowledge actually reflects what has already been shown through divine miracles. For believers, science is not in conflict with faith, but rather a tool that can help appreciate the greatness of creation. Beyond the scientific side, the mirage also carries deep moral and spiritual lessons. One of the central outcomes of this journey was the command for Muslims to pray 5 times a day. Prayer in Islam is not just a ritual of words and actions. It is a direct link between the believer and the Creator. Each time a Muslim prays, they are reminded of the Miraj, because it was during this heavenly meeting that prayer was prescribed. In fact, many scholars call prayer the Miraj of the believer, because it lifts the soul beyond worldly concerns and brings it into the presence of Allah. This connection between prayer and time is also meaningful. Each prayer is tied to a specific moment of the day: sunrise, noon, afternoon, sunset, and night. The daily rhythm of prayer creates a sacred order in the flow of time. Just as the Miraj showed that time can be transcended, prayer shows that time can be sanctified. It transforms ordinary hours into opportunities for spiritual travel. In this sense, the Miraj was not just a single night for the Prophet, but an ongoing lesson for all Muslims about how to live with awareness of time. Another important lesson from the Miraj is about belief in the unseen. When the Prophet told the Quraysh of his journey, many of them mocked him. They said it was impossible for a man to go to Jerusalem and the heavens in one night. Some even left Islam because they could not accept it. But Abu Bakr, as mentioned earlier, responded with complete faith. He trusted the Prophet without hesitation. This teaches that true faith is not limited by human logic. While Islam encourages reflection and reasoning, there are moments when the believer must trust in the power of Allah, even if it surpasses human understanding. Still, the Miraj does not reject reason. The Prophet did not ask his followers to believe blindly. He described details of Jerusalem, though he had never traveled there. When the Quraysh tested him by asking about the city, he gave accurate descriptions that matched what travelers knew. This confirmed the truth of his journey. Faith in Islam is always balanced between trust in Allah and recognition of evidence. The Miraj embodies this balance, showing both miraculous events and verifiable details. It is also worth noting that the Miraj was not only about travel in space and time. It was about an intimate meeting between the Prophet and his Lord. At the highest point, called Sidrat al-Muntaha, the Prophet experienced closeness to Allah beyond words. This shows that the ultimate purpose of the journey was spiritual elevation, not physical wonder. The science of Miraj is hidden not only in relativity or dimensions, but in the reality that the human heart can be lifted beyond all barriers when Allah wills it. For Muslims today, the Miraj continues to be a source of inspiration. It reminds them that prayer is their link to the heavens, that faith requires trust beyond the limits of reason, and that the universe holds mysteries still unknown to science. It also encourages them to seek knowledge. The Prophet once said that seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. The Miraj shows that faith and knowledge are not enemies, but companions. Understanding the laws of time and space can deepen one's appreciation of Allah who created those laws. In summary, Part 2 has shown us how the Miraj connects with both science and faith. From relativity to dimensions, from wormholes to the people of the cave, we see that the idea of time travel is not foreign to Islam. But more importantly, we see that the real goal of the Miraj was spiritual, not scientific. It was about linking the Prophet and his followers to their Creator. Science can help us appreciate the possibility, but faith gives us the meaning. As we move into Part 3, we will explore the historical reactions to the Miraj, the way scholars across centuries interpreted it, and how it influenced Islamic thought and culture. We will also see how the story of the Miraj has inspired poetry, art and philosophy across the Muslim world, keeping the mystery of time and space alive in the hearts of believers. The historical interpretations of Miraj, the event of Miraj, has held a central place in Islamic history, not only as a miraculous journey, but also as a subject of reflection, commentary, and even debate among scholars. From the earliest centuries of Islam until the present day, Muslims have tried to understand what exactly happened on that blessed night and how it should be interpreted. Was it a physical journey with the body and soul of the prophet, or was it a purely spiritual vision? Was it something symbolic or something literal? These questions were discussed by great minds in every era, and their interpretations shaped Islamic thought, culture, and imagination in profound ways. When we look at the earliest sources, such as the hadith collections of Bukhari and Muslim, we find clear narrations about the prophet being taken on a journey from Mecca to Jerusalem and then ascending to the heavens. These narrations describe in detail the prophet meeting earlier prophets such as Adam, Jesus, Moses, and Abraham, peace be upon them all. They also describe the gift of prayer being given during the heavenly meeting. These narrations leave little doubt that the companions understood the Miraj as a real event and not just a dream. The prophet himself described it in ways that indicated it was an actual experience. At the same time, the Quran refers to the event in verses such as Surah Al-Isra, where Allah says, "Glory be to the one who took his servant by night from the sacred mosque to the farthest mosque." The wording here, servant, has been understood by many scholars to mean both body and soul. If it were only the soul, some scholars argue, the verse would not have emphasized servant, which includes the full human being. This is why the majority opinion throughout Islamic history has been that the Miraj was a physical and spiritual journey. However, not all agreed without question. Some scholars suggested that the Miraj might have been a vision of the heart or a powerful spiritual dream. They pointed out that miraculous visions are also possible and that the purpose of the Miraj could still be fulfilled through such a vision. Yet the dominant view among Sunni scholars has remained that the journey was real and bodily. Imam Nawawi, for example, clearly stated that the soundest view is that the prophet was taken with both body and soul. The debate itself shows something important about Islamic scholarship. Scholars never feared asking difficult questions. They analyzed texts, compared narrations, and discussed possibilities with respect. The diversity of views shows the richness of intellectual life in Islam. But despite the debate, one truth was always agreed upon: the Miraj was a divine miracle granted to the prophet, and its lessons are real regardless of the exact nature of the journey. Beyond theology, the Miraj also had a deep impact on Islamic culture. Poets throughout history used the imagery of the prophet's ascension to describe spiritual longing and closeness to Allah. Persian poets such as Rumi and Attar filled their verses with references to journeys beyond the world. For them, the Miraj symbolized the soul's yearning for union with its creator. Turkish poets wrote songs about the prophet rising above the heavens, while Arab poets praised the honor given to him on that night. The event inspired art as well, with miniature paintings in Persian and Ottoman manuscripts depicting the prophet riding Buraq, surrounded by angels ascending through the skies. These artistic expressions show how the Miraj captured the imagination of believers across lands and centuries. Philosophers and theologians also reflected on the Miraj in their writings. Thinkers like Al-Ghazali saw in the event a model of spiritual ascent. For Al-Ghazali, the human heart has the potential to rise above worldly distractions and approach the divine light. The prophet's Miraj was the highest example of this ascent. Others, like Ibn Arabi, used the Miraj to explain mystical concepts. Ibn Arabi believed the journey symbolized the stages of spiritual realization. The prophet's meeting with earlier prophets represented the seekers, progressed through different stations of knowledge until reaching the ultimate reality of Allah. Such interpretations did not deny the literal journey but added layers of meaning that enriched spiritual thought. In addition, the Miraj influenced Islamic law and ritual. As mentioned earlier, the 5 daily prayers were established during this journey. This means that every Muslim's daily practice is directly tied to the Miraj. The timing of prayers, morning, noon, afternoon, evening, and night, connects earthly life with cosmic order. The act of facing the Kaaba during prayer recalls the Prophet's journey from the sacred mosque to the farthest mosque. Thus the Miraj is not only remembered once a year, but lived every day through prayer. Throughout history, Muslims also commemorated the Miraj with special gatherings. In many cultures, the night of Isra and Miraj became an occasion for reciting poetry, telling stories, and reflecting on the Prophet's greatness. While such celebrations were not obligatory, they showed the love of ordinary Muslims for this miraculous event. Mosques were decorated, people stayed awake in prayer, and scholars delivered sermons about the lessons of the journey. These traditions kept the memory of the Miraj alive in community life. Interestingly, the Miraj also influenced architecture. The Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, built in the 7th century, was constructed on the site where Muslims believe the Prophet ascended to the heavens. Its magnificent design with golden dome and intricate mosaics became one of the most iconic monuments of Islamic civilization. The very existence of this building shows how central the Miraj was to early Muslims. It was not just a story, but a reality that shaped their art and architecture. The Miraj also became a subject of interfaith discussion. Jews and Christians recognized elements in the story that resonated with their own traditions. For example, the Prophet's ascension reminded some of the ascension of Jesus in Christian belief, or the vision of Ezekiel in the Hebrew Bible. While the details were different, the theme of a chosen prophet being lifted to the heavens was familiar. This created both dialogue and debate between communities. For Muslims, however, the Miraj remained unique because it was not only about ascension but also about the giving of prayer and the confirmation of the Prophet's status as leader of all prophets. Over time, the Miraj story was told and retold in many languages: Arabic, Persian, Turkish, Urdu, Malay, and more. Each culture added its flavor, but the core remained the same. Children learned about Buraq in bedtime stories. Preachers used the event to remind people of the importance of prayer. Mystics saw in it the journey of the soul. Artists painted it, poets sang it, architects honored it. This shows that the Miraj was not only a moment in history, but a living source of inspiration that traveled across time and space, just like the Prophet himself did on that night. From a historical perspective, one of the most striking things is how the Miraj has survived the test of skepticism. In every age, there were those who doubted miracles. Philosophers influenced by Greek rationalism sometimes tried to reduce such stories to metaphors. Modern secular thinkers dismissed them as legends. Yet the Miraj continued to live in the hearts of believers because it was not only about the past, but about present experience. Every Muslim who prays feels connected to the Miraj. Every community that remembers the Prophet's journey keeps it alive. The endurance of this story shows its power to speak to both reason and imagination. Even today, the Miraj continues to spark discussion in modern contexts. Some Muslims focus on its scientific dimensions, comparing it with relativity and space travel. Others emphasize its spiritual meaning as a reminder of prayer and devotion. Both approaches show the richness of the event. It can speak to scientists as well as mystics, to philosophers as well as poets. This universality is part of why the Miraj remains central to Islamic identity. Another angle worth considering is how the Miraj shaped the Prophet's own mission. After experiencing the heavens and meeting Allah, the Prophet returned not to escape the world, but to serve it. He brought back the gift of prayer and continued his struggle in Mecca. This teaches that spiritual experiences are not meant for escape, but for empowerment. The Miraj gave the Prophet strength to face the challenges ahead, including persecution and migration. In the same way, believers today can draw strength from prayer, which connects them to the heavens while keeping them grounded on earth. Part 3 of our story has shown how the Miraj was interpreted by scholars, poets, mystics, and ordinary believers throughout history. It was debated in theology, celebrated in culture, depicted in art, and honored in architecture. It connected Islam with other traditions, yet remained uniquely Islamic. Most importantly, it inspired Muslims to pray, to reflect, and to rise above the limits of the material world. As we move into part 4, we will bring together all the threads. We will explore how the Mirage speaks to the modern world of science, technology, and spiritual search. We will consider what lessons it holds for humanity today and how it can guide future generations in a time when questions about space-time and reality are more pressing than ever. Mirage and the modern world. As we have seen in the previous parts, the Mirage was not just a historical event, but a spiritual and intellectual source of inspiration that has shaped Islamic thought across centuries. In the first part, we explored the mystery of time and the miraculous journey itself. In the second, we connected the event with science and faith. In the third, we traced how it was interpreted throughout history and culture. Now, in this final part, we will focus on what the Mirage means for the modern world. We will explore how it speaks to contemporary science, technology, philosophy, and spirituality. We will also see what lessons it offers to humanity as it faces new challenges in the 21st century. Modern life is filled with questions about time and space. With the development of technology, humans have entered an age where space travel is no longer fantasy, but reality. Satellites orbit the Earth, astronauts live in space. Stations and scientists are planning journeys to Mars. At the same time, physics continues to explore the mysteries of relativity, quantum theory, and multiple dimensions. Against this background, the story of the Mirage has gained renewed attention. Many Muslims see in it a sign that their faith anticipated realities that science is only now beginning to understand. For example, when physicists talk about time dilation near the speed of light, believers are reminded of the Prophet's journey in a single night, covering distances that seem impossible. When scientists discuss wormholes, connecting distant parts of the universe, Muslims recall how the Prophet traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem and beyond without crossing every mile in between. When theorists suggest the existence of multiple dimensions hidden from human senses, Muslims think of the heavens described in the Mirage, each with its own realities. For believers, these connections are not coincidences, but reminders that divine knowledge is far beyond human knowledge. Yet the Mirage is not only about confirming modern science. It also offers a perspective that science alone cannot provide. Science can explain how time might bend or how dimensions might exist, but it cannot answer why humans long to transcend time or what purpose such journeys should serve. The Mirage gives that answer. It shows that the ultimate goal of transcending time and space is not curiosity or power, but closeness to the Creator. The Prophet did not ascend to the heavens to gain control over the universe, but to receive guidance for humanity. The gift he brought back was not technology, but prayer, a simple yet profound act that connects the human soul to Allah 5 times a day. This lesson is especially important in the modern world, where technology often advances faster than wisdom. Humans have learned to split atoms, harness energy, and send machines to distant planets, yet they still struggle with war, injustice, and loneliness. The Mirage reminds us that knowledge without faith can be dangerous, but when combined with spiritual purpose, knowledge becomes a blessing. It directs us not to arrogance, but to humility, not to conquest, but to connection with the divine. Another modern relevance of the Mirage lies in the idea of human potential. The Prophet's journey shows that the human being is not limited to earthly existence. By the will of Allah, the servant can rise above the stars. This challenges modern materialism, which often reduces humans to physical bodies bound by biology. The Mirage tells us that humans have a spiritual essence capable of reaching beyond the limits of time and space. In a world where many feel trapped by the fast pace of life, this message is deeply liberating. It says that no matter how heavy the burdens of the world, the soul has the ability to ascend through prayer, faith, and remembrance of Allah. The Mirage also speaks to the modern fascination with time. Travel in popular culture. Movies, novels, and series often imagine machines that take people to the past or future. These stories entertain, but they also reflect a deep human desire to escape the limits of time. The Mirage shows that such escape is not only a fantasy, but a reality granted by Allah to His chosen messenger. Yet it also teaches that escaping time is not an end in itself. The true purpose is to gain insight, guidance, and spiritual elevation. This shifts the focus from entertainment to meaning. In addition, the Miraj offers a vision of unity at a time when the world is divided. During his journey, the Prophet met earlier prophets and prayed with them in Jerusalem. This symbolizes the continuity of divine revelation and the brotherhood of all prophets. It shows that Islam doesn't stand apart, but completes the chain of guidance from Adam to Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and finally Muhammad, peace be upon them all. In a world where religions are often seen as divided, the Miraj reminds us that their roots are connected. This message of unity is urgently needed today. The Miraj also challenges modern ideas of progress. Many believe progress means moving forward in technology, economy, or politics. But the Miraj shows that true progress is measured by closeness to Allah. A single night of prayer can be greater than centuries of material achievement. This does not mean rejecting technology or science, but placing them in the right perspective. They are tools, not goals. The real goal is spiritual elevation. Furthermore, the Miraj teaches lessons about resilience. When the Prophet experienced the journey, it was during one of the most difficult times in his life. He had faced rejection in Mecca, the loss of his beloved wife Khadijah, and the pain of persecution. The Miraj came as a divine comfort, showing him that despite earthly struggles, he was honored in the heavens. For modern people facing crises, whether personal or global, this lesson is powerful. It says that trials on earth do not define ultimate worth. What matters is the connection to Allah. Even in the darkest night, the soul can ascend to light. Another dimension of the Miraj's modern relevance lies in its call to mindfulness of time. In today's world, people often feel enslaved by clocks, deadlines, and schedules. Time is seen as money, something to be spent or wasted. The Miraj shifts this view. It shows that time is a trust from Allah and can be expanded or contracted by His will. Prayer organizes the day not around profit, but around remembrance. By praying at set times, Muslims learn that time is sacred, not just mechanical. This transforms life from a race against the clock into a journey with meaning. The Miraj also has implications for environmental consciousness. The Prophet's journey through the heavens revealed the vastness of creation. He saw the order of the cosmos and the realities beyond human sight. This vision teaches respect for creation. In an age of ecological crisis, when humans exploit the earth without regard, the Miraj reminds us that the universe is a sign of Allah, not a possession of man. To harm it is to ignore its sacredness. The journey of the Prophet teaches awe, humility, and responsibility towards the environment. On a philosophical level, the Miraj speaks to the modern debate about reality itself. Scientists and philosophers discuss whether reality is only material or whether there are layers beyond what we see. Virtual reality technology and simulations have made people question what is real. The Miraj offers an answer. Reality is not limited to sensory perception. There are unseen realms that are as real, if not more real, than the physical. Faith in these realms expands human understanding of existence. The Miraj is therefore not only a historical event, but a philosophical statement about the nature of reality. For young Muslims growing up in a world of doubts and distractions, the Miraj can be a source of confidence. It shows that their faith speaks to the deepest human questions about time, space, and purpose. It also shows that Islam does not reject science, but integrates it within a larger framework of meaning. By studying both revelation and reason, they can stand firmly in a world that often tries to separate the two. The Miraj becomes not just a story from the past, but a guide for navigating the future. As we reflect on the modern relevance of the Miraj, we must also remember its central lesson: prayer. No matter how advanced humanity becomes, the act of bowing to Allah remains the greatest journey. Technology may take humans to Mars, but prayer takes the soul to the Creator. The Miraj began with a miraculous ride on Buraq, but its gift was the simple act of standing, kneeling, and prostrating. This paradox is the heart of Islam: grandeur in simplicity, transcendence in humility. In conclusion, the Miraj is far more than a tale of miraculous travel. It is a revelation about time, space, and the human soul. It shows that time is relative and under divine control. It connects with scientific principles while transcending them. It inspired centuries of culture and continues to inspire today. It teaches that true elevation lies in prayer, faith, and closeness to Allah. For the modern world, filled with knowledge yet hungry for meaning, the Miraj is a guiding light. With this final part we have completed the journey of our story: time travel in Islam, the hidden science of Miraj explained. From the foundations of time in the Quran, to the scientific reflections, from the historical interpretations, to the modern lessons, we have traveled through many dimensions of understanding. Just as the Prophet's journey was both miraculous and meaningful, so too our reflection on it has been both intellectual and spiritual. May it inspire us to see time not as a prison, but as a path, and to use every moment as a chance to ascend through prayer and remembrance of Allah.